Opportunity Dallas is a new organization focused on economic mobility and prosperity. Economic mobility is the American dream. It's about doing better than your parents did. Like many, our definition of opportunity is that if you work hard and play by the rules, the American dream should be realistically within reach. But in Dallas, we must confront the reality that structural barriers stand in the way of the dream for many. One of the great challenges to economic mobility and prosperity is concentrated poverty and segregation. That's right, we're going to say the S word. Segregation. Some don't like to say it, but in Dallas it's been our way of life for decades, living separately from each other by race and income. North Dallas and South Dallas. White neighborhoods, black neighborhoods, and Hispanic neighborhoods. Wealthy neighborhoods gated off. Obscenely poor neighborhoods where stray dogs run amok. Wealthy white schools with high performance. Schools with exclusively poor children of color that struggle academically. Segregation by race and class is the principal organizing feature of our neighborhoods and schools. Not a natural condition, but one that was orchestrated over many decades. Many have grown complacent with the arrangement, either accustomed to its pervasiveness or conceding that it's hopeless, not worth it, or too controversial to even touch. Unfortunately, in Dr. King's words, for too long, we've settled for a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, instead of a positive peace, which is the presence of justice. Some people think that the issues of concentrated poverty and segregation don't impact them or touch their lives. But it's time we recognize and acknowledge that there are no beneficiaries of this arrangement. It costs us billions, obstructs opportunity for thousands, squanders potential, harms students' educational outcomes, and is a moral stain. It's time we act. First, the problem. This map shows census tracts where 40% or more of the population lives below the poverty line. That's concentrated poverty. In Dallas, 37% of children live in concentrated poverty, compared to the state average of 19% and the national average of 14%. Concentrated poverty disproportionately harms children of color. In some areas, concentrated poverty is incredibly severe, where more than 7 out of 10 households live below the poverty line. High-income families live with other high-income families, and low-income families are often isolated with other low-income families, leaving very few mixed-income communities and schools. According to the Mayor's Poverty Task Force, Dallas has the highest neighborhood inequity of any city in the U.S. larger than 250,000. The poverty rate has increased 42% over the past 15 years. 1 in 3 Hispanics and blacks live below the poverty line. 50,000 kids live in extreme poverty. Over 27,000 residents work full-time but still live in poverty, and over half of households make less than $50,000 per year. The median income has declined for about 30 years, falling at a steeper rate than peer cities and Texas as a whole. Concentrated poverty and segregation are a major structural drag on a city's economic well-being, leading to what some call compounded inequality. It weakens a city's property tax base. Southern Dallas is 45% of the county population, 60% of the city's land mass, but only 15% of the city's property tax base. We expect the city to provide quality services to its people, police and fire, efficient 911 systems, technology and emergency management systems, fixing potholes. We expect the school district to invest in student resources and teacher professional development. But how realistic is it to expect high-quality services across the full city when almost half of the city is contributing virtually no tax revenue? The current trajectory is simply unsustainable. Concentrated poverty also depresses home values, stunting wealth accrual for homeowners. It limits employment and earnings. It damages health and school quality. It reinforces prejudice and distrust. And it requires costly city interventions that everyone pays for. But when poverty is dispersed, opportunities widen and outcomes for low-income people tend to improve significantly, without depressing property values or increasing crime in other parts of town. And it improves the entire city's economic well-being. In the 1970s, Montgomery County, Maryland decided to disperse poverty through a scattered site housing program, producing 13,000 affordable units across the county. As a result, low-income children did better in school, and Montgomery County does better than nearly 4 out of 5 counties in the nation in terms of economic mobility for poor children. By contrast, Dallas County does better than only 1 out of 5 counties in the nation. According to the Equality of Opportunity Project, if you grow up in Dallas and your family is in the bottom fifth of income, you have only a 6% chance of reaching the top fifth of income as an adult, which is on the lower end of metro areas. The Urban Institute and Metro Planning Council recently looked at Chicago, which is highly segregated like Dallas. They estimated that if Chicago could reduce its segregation just to the national median, There would be a 30% drop in the homicide rate, saving $65 million in policing and $218 million in corrections costs. Incomes for African Americans would rise an average of $2,900 per person per year, which would increase the earnings of the region by $4.4 billion. GDP would increase by approximately $8 billion. Residential real estate values would increase by $6 billion, which means more revenue for local government and profit for businesses. And 83,000 more adults would complete a bachelor's degree. Counties with strong economic mobility tend to have higher residential diversity, where affluent, middle class, and low-income families can live in the same neighborhoods. Counties with weak economic mobility tend to have more residential segregation. In a large national study, economist Raj Chetty looked at poor children who moved before age 13 from a high-poverty neighborhood to a lower-poverty neighborhood through a housing voucher program, and he compared them to those who stayed in high-poverty neighborhoods. As adults, they were more likely to attend college, get married, and have children with a father present. They earned 31% more in annual income, and expected lifetime earnings increased by about $302,000. They were more likely to live in better neighborhoods as adults. They'll pay more in federal income tax, which offsets the initial cost of the voucher. They'll also require less government assistance, which makes it a net gain for the taxpayer. And the gains likely extend to the next generation. Future grandkids are more likely to be raised in lower poverty neighborhoods by two parents who are more educated and have higher incomes. That breaks the cycle of generational poverty. Breaking up concentrated poverty through housing policy reduces long-term poverty. Few, if any, interventions produce these types of outcomes at this scale and scope. In Dallas, our best hope to do this at scale is to develop a comprehensive approach to housing, which we don't currently have. Housing policies are the linchpin because they drive the distribution of poverty within a city. They can be the most important mechanism to shape whether poverty is concentrated or dispersed. A comprehensive housing policy would contain a number of elements to help break up concentrations of poverty, revitalizing disadvantaged communities through job creation and growth, reducing barriers for low-income households so they can afford to live in high-opportunity areas, increasing the overall supply of affordable housing in high-opportunity areas, and introducing the concept of inclusive gentrification to both enable progress and protect against displacement. Today in Dallas, there's a sense of urgency but a lack of infrastructure. The Dallas Morning News editorial board recently encouraged the work to write the city's first ever housing policy and said that public policy must be written to scatter affordable housing into diverse areas of the city. Individual groups have issued their own recommendations, gentrifying communities are mobilizing, and Dallas ISD is losing enrollment, largely due to a lack of affordable housing. But several elements are needed which haven't been present yet. First, a policy this big requires cross-sector co-development to garner diverse, broad-based political support. That means bringing together city officials, developers, fair housing advocates, university experts, and residents to jointly craft recommendations. Second, rather than simply getting together and talking about it, these groups need to work through a research-based collective impact process where they engage in mutually reinforcing activities and track progress against shared measurements. Third, we need a backbone organization to lead the overall strategy and logistics on a daily basis, a fair and honest broker who can bring stakeholders together, facilitate best-in-class working sessions, share best practices, and engage in constant communication, which is the void Opportunity Dallas seeks to fill. And finally, we must secure the resources to underpin the policies. According to the Urban Land Institute, in the last city bond issue in 2012, only $20 million out of $642 million was spent on affordable and mixed-income housing. Opportunity Dallas can help make the case to voters about the need for larger affordable housing investments in the next bond issue. According to the census, about half of Dallas renters and a third of homeowners are living in housing requiring more than 40% of family income. Anything above 30% is considered cost-burdened, which means you don't have much leftover income for other necessities like nutritious food or transportation. Opportunity Dallas can be a consistent voice and champion that can partner with public, private, and nonprofit entities, especially elected officials and senior leaders, to help educate the general public about these issues. We seek to partner hand in hand with local government to help accelerate progress where it matters most. A robust housing policy could be a win-win for everyone, from developers to fair housing advocates. Think back to the Chicago numbers. But also, available affordable housing helps businesses attract and retain employees. It can spark economic stimulus. According to the National Association of Home Builders, building 100 affordable rental homes leads to 11.7 million in local income generation, 2.2 million in taxes and other revenue for local governments, and 161 local jobs in the first year alone. An analysis of Austin's 2006 affordable housing bonds by Civic Economics and Housing Works Austin shows that the initial investment of $55 million brought $865 million to the local economy, meaning that every $1 in initial investment yielded nearly 16 in economic activity. Affordable and stable housing also leads to better educational and health outcomes for children. And it can improve social cohesion. Residents of diverse neighborhoods hold less racial prejudice, and kids who attend diverse schools improve academically and benefit from more expansive social networks. Given the population growth of the DFW area, it's possible we could add 1 million households over the next 25 years. If we start today with a commitment to mixed income housing from the outset, we can improve outcomes for countless. We can't focus solely on treating the symptoms of poverty, but rather must address the structures that cause and perpetuate poverty in the first place. Opportunity Dallas would serve as the needed backbone infrastructure to help develop a comprehensive approach to housing, which is the linchpin for economic mobility and prosperity.